In this module, we continue with the corridor design. But before we continue, I want to clean up my control panel. In the last module, I deactivated the function of the shared parameter, so it basically has no purpose anymore. But it was this parameter that was used to decide if a corridor has indeed one design. But that's what the one design per corridor toggle was meant for. So let's quickly correct that. Copy this parameter, go to the corridor design network, up to the choose design wrangle, and here paste in the relative reference. Now the one design functionality is linked to the right toggle, and that also means we can get rid of the shared UI element. Now that this is cleaned up, we can go back to our design. The second design that I originally prepared was the Windows design. It uses a fairly different approach than the pipes. The cooling variant, however, was meant to be a modification of the pipes. The idea was, how can I reuse most of the network but still come up with a complete different looking design? And since what we did in the pipes is still fresh in our heads, I want to continue with the cooling variant. Now this is a copy of the pipe network. We need to convert this into its own design. So let's start at the top. First things first, we have to change the blast node with the design attribute to the ID 3. This will start messing with the result that you can see in the viewport. But it's also a good way to find out how stable your network really is. Now, the walls are still here while the details are in the back. Why is that? Now the primitives with the design 3 are those. Since the rest of this network is the exact copy from the pipe network, we can still see that design except for the gap. And this is caused by using two end panels in the cooling preparation. But what happened with the wall? That should come to no surprise, since we used a separate blast node for them. A minor detail that we might want to clean up at some point, but for now just change that blast also to 3. For the pipe design we had one end panel. In this one we have two. If we would change this blast to greater or equals 1, we can see both panels. But in fact I only want to work with the outer panel. The color gradient just makes it too easy to find the right direction. We won't need to touch the test normal setup. We might need to adjust the final position though. But first let's create some space in this network. At the moment we have one block for the end panel and another for the middle section. In this network we need an additional block for the second end panel. To create that, just copy the first one and we go through it to see what we can scavenge from it. Now we start with two exact copies, but the most important difference between those two blocks will be in this wrangle. This moves the finished design of that panel into the direction of the normal. But since we use the most outer panel to create the details on both selected end panels, we need one to move by one normal and the other one to move by two normals. After doing that, the gap is closed. So the general idea is working. Now we have to convert the pipe design into a completely different one. A design I called cooling. Now let's start with the outer panel. The basis for this design will again be the primitive with the color gradient on it. For the first end panel we won't need anything like the pipe end segment. We can get rid of all of it, down to the whole copy to points area. Of course we still need the pivot point from the test normal wrangle. But let's start with what will be the outer shape. We take the already colored panel and feed it into an extrude node. When satisfied with the thickness, we also put a bevel on this. I prefer the look of the round shape. Give this a few more divisions and only slightly increase the offset. I only need this piece for the middle section. I want additional pieces at the top and the bottom. The bottom part is already there. Just leave everything as it is, but we don't need the switch right here. And with the bevel we go for a different look this time. Also limit the operation to primitive 4, that's the top one. Then pull down the distance to a very small value. Now we already have two pieces. While we are down here, let's also bring the first piece into the merge. For the third piece, start by copying these two nodes and change the push down into a push up. What I mean by that is taking the points at the bottom and increase their position in Y. 2.1 should be enough. That gives us a tiny plane up here, which then becomes a box. Then copy in the slope wrangle, which we then need to adjust. This time we want to manipulate the points that are lower than 3 in Y, and when we got those, we no longer want to decrease their position, we want to increase it, but maybe not by 5, let's only use 0.4. Next we bring in the bevel. This time we want to bevel the bottom primitive, so change the number from 4 to 2. Then we also want to create the normals, pack the geometry and feed this also into the merge. The overall shape has now clear direction, but we still want to get the normal by using the attribute transfer node. We still need to know the direction in which we move the panel. Now this was the first end panel.